the defender's on the wrong foot, his balance is on the wrong way, and Sam Vokes is just getting across there. And the header is as good as a header you're ever going to see. The cross is as good as you're going to see in the header, and it was just one of those moments where it clicked. So, Wayne Hennessy in goal. Neil Taylor, left wing back. Left side centre half was Ben Davies. Middle of three centre backs and the captain Ashley Williams, and right side centre back James Chester. Chris Gunter, right wing back. Two holding midfield players. Left side Joe Ledley, right side Joe Allen. Two number 10s, Aaron Ramsey, Gareth Bale, and a central striker of Hal Robson-Kanu. You know when you're up against a team like Belgium, certain things you just know are going to happen, and that they're going to have a lot of possession. They're going to create chances. You can't stop everything. You know they're going to create chances because they've got a Hazard, they've got a De Bruyne, they've got a Lukaku, and even their so-called out-and-out central midfielders or holding midfielders in Witsel or Nainggolan, who scored the opening goal. They still have got the capacity and the ability to score and create. They had Carrasco on the other side. So, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 offensive players, really. They can all score goals and create. Everybody looks at Hazard, and of course, he's a brilliant player, De Bruyne. But there's other jewels in that Belgium makeup offensively that can hurt you. So we wanted a real tight formation that we knew that Belgium are going to end up in our half of the pitch with a lot of possession. And when they do end up in our half of the pitch, so Lukaku is going to be in these areas. De Bruyne, Hazard really comes inside a lot to make up that threesome, if you like. Now, doesn't matter how many bodies you've got behind the ball. When you've got three players like Hazard, De Bruyne and Lukaku, there's not enough. You can cover every gap. They'll find something. They've just got that imagination and ability and talent to find a gap and find a space. And that's how we conceded our first goal. We sunk too deep into the box. And actually, this guy, Nainggolan, so Aaron Ramsey dropped in trying to support. I think it was Chris Gunter, Joe Ledley, Joe Allen's in here. The ball gets played out to Nainggolan. And because we've got so many bodies behind the ball and we're too deep, we can't make that run to try and stop him from shooting. He shoots from 25 yards and it's a pile driver and he's an unstoppable shot and they score. It goes to show sometimes you can get so many bodies behind the ball. If you're in the wrong areas and you're up against top-class opposition, you're going to get picked off. And we got picked off on their first goal. The big thing with the set plays came from, we benchmarked every team from our first campaign. So I asked our analysts to give me all the information. How many goals do the top qualifying teams, how many do they score from set plays? How many goals do they score in a campaign? How many goals are conceded from set plays? How many clean sheets do the best teams keep, blah, 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 blah. Even to how many crosses they let in the box. How many times they get beat on 1-2s or given goals around the box. So we had all these benchmarks that we knew we need to, in this area, we need to be this good, in this area, that good. And with the set plays anyway, I think it's something like 33% of all goals are scored from set plays. So they really are important. I know everybody wants to watch Barcelona and now Man City with Pep and teams who play that superb, lovely football. That's great, and that's all right. But sooner or later, there's going to be a set play. And if you don't defend that properly, you can have 80% possession of a game of football, and you switch off one time from a set play, and you can see the goal. The effect that has on the group is a killer. Offensively in this game, we were excellent. Nevertheless, we scored the first goal from a set play where Ashley Williams gets a run. And we always say it doesn't matter how many bodies, it doesn't matter who you're defending against. if you've got one person that really wants to attack the ball, and you could have 10 other people in and around him that doesn't want it as much, he's going to win that header. And that's his classic example. He got a great run. I can't remember who was against him, but he got a run. He got in the gap where he headed it around here. Ball goes in the corner because he attacked the ball with intent. Belgium switched off, one set play. They were in 1-0 up. I think people expected them to go on and get 2-0. Never happened. All from a set play. And that was Ashley Williams' intent, just to go win a duel, go and win a challenge. It was his man up against him, and he came out on top, and we're back in the game. And now Belgium, from being in a position of power, were very, very nervous because we weren't going away, all from one set play. Half time, so we've come in, and it really was a proper ding-dong game where the ball was at either end. After they scored, Nainggolan scored that, I think everybody thought Belgium would go on and, start dominating. It was on the contrary, actually. The other thing happened where we started dominating. And what we were doing was, which Belgium didn't work out. So there's our midfielder. So Hal Robson-Kanu up against their 2 centre-backs. We had 4 midfield players, Joe Ledley, Joe Allen, Aaron Ramsey, Gareth Bale, against their 3 midfield players, De Bruyne, Witsel, Nainggolan. And we kept finding the spare man. So if you could just box that off, we've got a 4 against their 3. And that's where we took the game to Belgium. Started dominating in the centre of the pitch. Joe Ledley, Gareth Bale, we were rotating really well. Sometimes it turned into a diamond. And they couldn't work us out, Belgium. And that's where we started dominating. We also started getting our wing backs really high and wide, which then the wide players, Carrasco and Hazard, which Hazard doesn't want to do because he's a natural attacking player and a world-class player. Hazard ends up getting really deep because he has to check the run of Chris Gunter. Now, when that happens, you can see where the space is and who the spare players are. De Bruyne can't be in 2 positions at once. So whichever side he was, then we found the spare midfielder, Joe Allen in this case, and we just worked it down the side. Belgium would come to one side to try and block off the spaces. High and wide wing back would stay up. We'd come back. Then obviously Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey. Now, this happened a lot where these 2 central holding midfield players for us had a lot of possession, and we kept switching the play, and eventually we picked them off. Neil Taylor got in, nearly scored. Aaron Ramsey kept getting into this gap here between their left back and the left centre back, and that really confused Belgium so much that they made a change half time. They took Carrasco off, which I was pleased about because I thought he was a good player, and because they were trying to negate and trying to work out where they could stop our box midfield, because that's really where the engine room was, and that's where we were running the game. So Bale ends up in here, right, off Chris Gunter. Aaron Ramsey makes a run from inside to out, plays the ball down the side. Now these 2 are left with Hal Robson-Kanu, and I think by that time, Fellaini is on the pitch and he's tracking back to try and help out. And Rambo cuts the ball back to Hal Robson-Kanu. By this time, Joe Allen's joining in on the edge of the box. Rambo cuts the ball back to Hal and he's surrounded by defenders. And then he does this amazing thing, this amazing Johan Cruyff turn. The defenders go for it and he ends up then in a 1v1. Now, when it's happening, actually, I was saying to myself, as we do as managers and coaches, as soon as the ball's laid back, I can see Joe Allen joining, and I'm thinking, have a touch and square it to Joe. He's going to have a first-time shot unopposed. But Hal doesn't do that because he's got other things in his mind, thankfully. So as soon as Rambo cuts that ball back and they go to close him down, he does the flick, he ends up, now he's a 1v1, And then obviously he puts the ball in the back of the net. It's absolute pandemonium, and we're off and running with 2-1 up. And things are looking a lot different to what people expected. Especially when you're up against a team like Belgium, the fullbacks push on because they're a very offensive team, Belgium. So of course, then you're left with sometimes either a Nainggolan or a Witsel, but the space is in these areas. When we won the ball back from Belgium, because their fullbacks are on, then the space is in these areas. Certainly on this area on the evening, this is where Aaron Ramsey kept getting in between the fullback and the centre-back in these areas. Now, any opposition will tell you, you don't want Aaron Ramsey picking the ball up, running in his stride, and a 1v1 with the centre-back. And it happened more than one occasion. But because we knew that the fullback for Belgium on the night was going to push on, and when we managed to win the ball back, we just tried to play Aaron in down that side. And certainly in the first half, it happened quite a bit, but the second half it did as well, and that's where the second goal came from. But that was certainly a ploy to try and get between that space that was left by the Belgian fullback. And when we won it back, Aaron Ramsey came from that inside position to try and run down the side of the centre-back. So this box midfield, a lot of time then turned into almost a 3, where Aaron had dropped into the midfield 3, and it almost becomes like a fake diamond, if you like, because we wanted Hal as much as he could to occupy the 2 centre-backs. But in human nature, you're 2-1 up, you're in quarter-final of a competition. This happened a bit more where Aaron dropped down, so we had a 3. Sometimes it's hard with the box. The 2 holding midfield players try to cover defensively that space in front of the back 3 or the back 5. One of them will get dragged out and then it leaves one. So then there's a lot of space on the other side of the pitch. One of these 10s, ideally the 10 on this side, has to drop in to try and make the 3 up. And that leaves like one floating 10 on a striker. And then when we really wanted to shut shop, then we bring both the number 10s in. So then you got the 5 and you got the 4. But then the wing backs would defend more narrow like that. And we'd concede these areas. We say you can have the ball in there, there's no problem. We're not afraid of you having it in there. Anytime you try to play one of those passes, penetrating pass in there, we've got 9 bodies to try and get in and around it. So we let you have the ball here and here. That's okay. And when we win it back, we've still got, remember, the extra man in midfield. We all evening we had a 4v3 in the centre of midfield. That kind of then, when you do win the ball back, for that to happen, you've got to get 2 or 3 passes off before these 2 10s can get up the pitch to create that 4v3. And it's not easy to do, but it's possible to do it. And we did it regularly on the night. But those number 10s, defensively on the evening when we went 2-1 up, mainly Aaron Ramsey dropped in because he's more of a midfielder than Gareth Bale, or he thinks more like a midfielder. So we ended up with a 3 and like a floating 10. But nevertheless, the space for Belgium to try and play between us, there wasn't much space. Hence why you saw them crossing the ball from these areas. And then Fellaini was on the pitch. They were crossing the ball from deeper because they couldn't get between us. They were crossing the ball from these areas where Lukaku got a header, Fellaini got a header. Thankfully, nothing came of it. But you rarely saw them playing little 1-2s in and amongst us, getting between us with a penetrating pass, because we closed all those gaps. So by this time we're 2-1 up, we make a change. We bring Hal Robson-Kanu off, who'd run himself into the ground. We bring Sam Vokes on, who's a big target man and who's a big, strong boy. Wins more than he loses in terms of battles. And really, the picture was a bit like that, where we got everybody behind the ball. Belgium were attacking. We win the ball back. We get 1 or 2 passes. Chris Gunter starts marauding forward. I think James Chester ends up with the ball in this position. Plays a nice pass out to Chris. And Chris just runs up the pitch. And I'm thinking, just run there. Just stay in the car. There's probably 5 minutes left. just run in there, and even if it goes for a goal kick or whatever, or we gain a corner or a throw in, run the clock down because we're so close now. But Chris sees something different. Chris knows how good Sam is. And as he's here, he's just got this side of the fullback. He delivers a cross. Courtois can't come for it. The defender's on the wrong foot, his balance is on the wrong way, and Sam Vokes is just getting across there. And the header is as good as a header you're ever going to see. The cross is as good as you're going to see in the header. And it was just one of those moments where it clicked. I'm actually shouting from the side, don't cross the ball, Chris. I may have used one or two other words in there, which I won't mention. But anyway, he crosses the ball. And as that ball's arriving, Sam Vokes is coming across the near post. The ball's past Courtois even before he moves, such as the pace of the header. And it's 3-1. And that was the end of that. Belgium are just throwing everything forward. Sometimes they're just 1v1. They've left 1v1 at the back, but we had such confidence in each other defensively. Our three centre-back, we've talked about Rambo and Bale and Ash, the captain, and how good they are, and Joe Ledley and Joe Allen, super players. But Neil Taylor, Chris Gunter, James Chester, players that don't get mentioned as much as Ben Davies is, who had gone to Tottenham when he was an excellent player. But Neil Taylor and James Chester and Chris Gunter, none of this would have happened without them. They're so important in their personality and how they fitted into everything, and their courage to actually go and perform on that stage. They're exceptional people, really exceptional. And their performance on the night was as good as Bale, as good as Ramsey, as good as Hal Robson-Kanu's goal. Their overall performance to a man on the evening was just exceptional. And even when it was 2-1 before we got the third one, everybody was just standing their ground in that battle, in that challenge. They all stood their ground. Nobody went missing. And they were just, they got what they deserved on the night, which is everything. We went into the game wanting everything out of it, and the performance that they gave, they deserved everything.